Okay, and we're recording. Hey, Dr. Q. There we go.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm
Good.
doing great.
Thank you for coming onto my show. And what a story you have. Like many other truth doctors that have had this awakening journey, you've are sharing yours with us with your incredible book that you've sent to me and that I still have yet to read. But eyes wide open. I've read the first few chapters, and yeah, I've had a few people
Yeah.
from my site already buy it and give me some fantastic reviews. So,
Awesome.
how are you?
I'm doing good. No, thank you for having me on. And yeah, this is so my book, and this is not self-serving. This book is truly just information for people. This is about a person who was, neck deep in the lies and in the brainwashing, and then this 3D slave hive mind mentality. And this book explains, well, I needed to go back and explain, how did we get here? That's what I
Yes,
wanted to do with that.
that's where
How did we get here?
let's start with
And
that.
this is important for the people that follow you.
Yeah.
So how do the doctors and the healthcare providers who have good hearts, how did they get to the point where they are prescribing and doing things that are harming you?
Yeah.
And that's the disconnect with people. I know that we're taught to trust healthcare professionals. We're also taught to trust your Catholic priest.
Absolutely.
And we're taught to trust your government, right?
Absolutely.
So the big wake up call is, people, you shouldn't trust anyone if it doesn't feel right in you. And so you have to be a little bit skeptical, okay? But this, at least from a medical standpoint, it can explain to people the process of indoctrination for doctors and nurses and healthcare providers. And it, it comes from the top and it filters down all of this information, whether or not it's injections, whether or not it's medications, whether or not it's the mindset. And so this is the current mindset in most healthcare providers, is that you are a fallible, genetically misfit, unhealthy human that has bad habits. And that's why you're sick. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. We are beautiful, perfect organisms that live in an environment since the day you were born that is polluting you, whether or not it's actual pollution, whether or not it's the injections you get, whether or not it's the food that you eat that has actually has cancerous chemicals in it, or the GMO food that you eat. I mean, it comes, whether it's the 5G towers or whatever it be. And so people need to get out of that mindset that, no, well, it's because I drink beer on the weekends, or it's because I eat too many chips, or no. This is a planned systemic operation.
Absolutely.
To make us sick.
Absolutely.
So that why do they do that? So that we run to the doctor for medicine, and medicine is tied to money.
Every ill.
So that, yes. So, and that's why I wrote the book. I needed to go far. First, I need to go back. How did we all get there? And then I woke up, and then it's my journey after that. And we can talk about the good stuff later, because the end of the book is also, we will talk at some point during this interview about the amazing things that are on horizon.
Interrupt you there. I wanted to say that I'm really grateful. The reason why I started off by speaking about the book, because for me, the awakening journey, we have similarities and parallels within this great global awakening of 2020. But as a doctor for yourself, I was really, really impressed with the fact that you were brave, Dr. Q, to do this, because a lot of doctors that I know are not coming out and saying anything, even if they know that there's a flaw in the system. Here in the UK, I don't there are a few doctors that are coming out, but they're sort of sectioned off as being conspiracy theorist doctors or crazy. And and that's why I wanted to start off with the Eyes Wide Open book, which is a beautiful name, because we have got to go into 2020 with the 2020 vision. Yes. Great Awakening. And I applaud you for this, because I can imagine a lot of people are not speaking up, Doctor, because of this fear that they could lose their jobs. They're too invested within their own medical web of, knowings, should I say, and they're just I by no means have ensconced myself in this virus so much, because I've been the conspiracy theorist, but to have you as a doctor and the so-called whistleblower, it's been really exciting for me. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, here's the thing, and this is what I need to tell. I wrote the book so that I can explain how we all got there, so that they have a get out of jail free card still. The window's closing. There is enough information out there that if you are a healthcare provider and you're not questioning it, you're going to be held liable soon. Okay. Absolutely. So, those days are coming. And so, the other thing that we shared, which I write about, that we talked about personally, is, and I know that many other people have gone through this experience, but I'm here telling you as a physician. So I had a number of chronic diseases. I almost even died from heart disease. Wow. But I had inflammatory bowel syndrome. I had psoriatic arthritis, and I got put through all the same things that everyone else does. Got placed on injections, medications, had endoscopies, colonoscopies, all that. And I'm telling you right now, every single one of those diseases was caused by environmental factors. I just had to figure it out. So did my GI doctor ask me what my diet was? No. Did he ask me what I was putting in my body daily? No. All they did was procedures and medications. And for that one in particular, I mean, I healed myself from a 20-year-long disease. Amazing. Merely by figuring out it was artificial sweeteners.
Right. Well, it's the aspartame in the art.
Yes.
And they're carcinogenic, right? The carcinogens in our foods. We don't.
And they're inflammatory. It's like you're. So my point to people is, it was a physician talking to another physician, and I spent the thousands of dollars. I spent the years being sick. I ended up in the hospital. All of those things, and it was such a simple fix. And the simple fix goes back to what we were talking about before. It's not that I was genetically faulty, like they tried to tell me, oh, your father has it, oh, you're just genetically faulty. No, I'm not. It was because I was eating poison 5 to 7 times a day, whether it was equal in my coffee or Diet Cokes. And the minute that I found that particular trigger and I stopped it, I mean, within a week, gone, done. And then that started. This was before my awakening, but this was, God does amazing things. So I guess I've been awakening slowly over the last 10 years, but this was one of the steps. So that was now I have distrust, and it's a healthy distrust.
Good. Yeah.
And I owned it myself. And so, that's part of the lesson is owning. If you're sitting there and you're complaining about how sick you are, about how you feel, and all this stuff, and then you immediately, a lot of people just blame themselves because when you're sick and you feel bad, then you turn to other substances, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs. But the reality is, you just have to figure out what was causing it in the first place.
Yeah. And there's stress factors, the emotional connections that we have to any dis-ease. There's loads of programs on this. And I share a similar journey to you, where I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia 5 years ago, and so many visits to the doctors. We only got 6 minutes. We had a time frame where we could sit at the doctor. They would be staring at the screen, and that's what they predominantly do. And then just like writing on the screen, not even actually paying that interest in you. So there's so many factors that we dismiss or have been taught to dismiss, because it's this blind faith that you have in the medical fraternity to and trust that they know what they're doing. And it's sad, it's upsetting, because there's so many people that need the help, that need the correct diagnosis, so that it's all holistically resolved. You can have psoriasis. There's stress factors that cause and exacerbate the psoriasis and all the health conditions. And we're not taught about that connection. I mean, yes, there's greater awareness now, but still we lean more towards the medical fraternity in good faith.
Because think about this. So now I want and I used to say this for years, I want your listeners, think about someone coming into your office, and within 6 to 15 minutes, you need to talk to them, examine them, figure out their problem, and then somehow magically in your computer mind, figure out a diagnosis and a treatment, all in 15 minutes. Okay. And then they added electronic medical records. That is an incredibly difficult task that strains even very brilliant doctors. So what is the easiest out? And it's not an easy out. These are not bad people necessarily, but they've been put in the position that if they have 15 minutes and you're coming in, and most people are wanting a pill, they're wanting the magic fix. So the easiest thing is to click a medicine. And so our system has now been fine-tuned. All we do, we just click, click, click. And then if you tell me disease, you don't even need to be a doctor. I mean, a robot could do this. If you tell me certain
now. You have the virtual doctors now.
I mean, you could just give me the symptoms and I'll plug in the medication. And so that's where people need to, maybe not, if it's hard to distrust your loving and caring physician or nurse that you've connected with, at least recognize they're in a situation where they have no choice. Can they sit and talk to you about, because you need at least a half an hour of trying to explain an alternative method. There's no way. They just don't have the time. And then they don't have the personal time because they're so busy working and hitting numbers and making money, not for them necessarily, for the corporations, because we all work for corporations now. There is no mom and pop, local doctors anymore. And so that
countries are all corporations. Everything's a corporation. It's systems. And so
yeah. And so it's been formed to there's no way of getting out of it right now. Yeah. So you're not going to get this answer from someone other than someone that's totally awakened. And what I was going to say before is, people have, thanked me and all that. I mean, no need to thank. I mean, it gets to the point where, we're supposed to do no harm first. That's the, as a healthcare provider, do no harm. And once you realize that you're doing harm with forced injection, you have to. I mean, if you don't, you're going to meet your maker one day and you're going to have a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
And so I urge, I know that we had talked about this before. I urge, you don't have to demonize the person that you love, if you love going to someone and they take care of you, but you do need to question, and you need to ask for true informed consent. And that's something that I've been harping on. I don't know if you've seen some of my tweets, harping on informed consent. And informed consent means you tell me the positives, great, but I need to know the negatives.
Yeah.
I need to know the potential. I mean, it could be something as simple as wearing a mask. Okay, great. You say it works. All right. So how about you explain to me, public health official, explain to me, so if I wear this 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, is that a problem? I haven't heard one discussion about the potential issues of rebreathing your air for 5 to 6 days a week.
We have huge censorship issues at the moment, and doctors like yourself, well-meaning doctors that feel restricted in and telling their truths and actually talking about it, they're censored. There are doctors that are around the world that are speaking their truths and basic common sense and biology about breathing your own air, the bacteria that you're sort of accumulating, because it's again fitting the story, like everything. System, everything fits a story and it fits those narratives. So we are locked in this sort of state of fear because the big boogeyman virus is out there, because we're all dropping dead like fleas.
And they don't want to give us fear about the masks. So that's where are the public health officials, where are they? I mean, they at least need to have a balanced discussion about this, because nothing is without a negative. Yes. If I tell you to wear a knee brace because your knees hurt, there's pros and there's cons to that. Everything that we give medically or health-wise has a potential negative. And so that's where we can start, is demanding to hear the other side of it. Let us make the decision then. Then you want to wear it, fine, but you need to know the information. Yeah. Alpa, hold on, my dog needs to go out. No. He's like whining.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's like with anything, that's just a life lesson, you know, when you do something, I don't care if you're going on a vacation, there's pros and cons, you know, you have to weigh that. And so people, please wake up, eyes open to the fact that every decision you make, every medication you put in your body, every substance, not just medicine, you eat a bag of chips, you need to look at the ingredients. And you need to weigh that decision of that last ingredient, the preservative being cancerous. Okay, well, it tastes good. That's positive. The negative, people need to wake up and start to own that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
going back, and that's power, is knowing that.
Absolutely. And power is knowing, also like understanding the depth of this deception and the corruption that happens within the system. And people at grassroots are just looking at the first layer. For example, the masks. The government has told us to wear the masks. And even if they do have this inkling that, oh, this is a load of nonsense, subordination is something that's huge. Yeah, they subordinate because it's a hassle. It's not sort of standing up in saying, no, this is tyranny, this is wrong. They're sort of silencing us. It has, it has a metaphoric meaning, the mask. It's to shut us up, to silence us, not to question things.
I mean, you remember, we only have to go back a couple of years. There were plenty of liberals that when you looked at, you showed them Iran or other Muslim states, and they're like, oh, the burqas, those are horrible. Women's rights. Where are they?
The hypocrisy.
Everyone's, the mask it's the same thing as a burqa. It covers your face, it covers your smile. It distances people, it stops them from connecting. And that's the spiritual.
And with children, they're doing this in schools. I mean, this is where my heart bleeds. And I think I feel so sorry for all those parents that have to deal with this, that are awake, even they're the ones that are sleeping, but are scared and in constant the fear program of, there's this disease out. And I actually myself, with the shows that I've done, I haven't even covered anything to do with this boogeyman disease. I switched off in April. I thought I let this play out. Unfortunately, I had a relative that passed away within the first week of this breaking out in the UK, one of the first six. And it was that determination within myself to sort of fight for this truth after her going onto the ventilators, which I later realized was the incorrect protocol to put people onto ventilators, is puncturing the lungs effectively and inducing coma state, coma state. And she was very young and 53, and unfortunately was one of those. So there's this burgeoning anger within myself. So I've had some friends that saying, Alpa, look, you're going a bit crazy with all this conspiracy stuff that you're talking about. But park that there. Alpa, how can you say this is a hoax? I've had my grandfather pass away. You've had your auntie. And what do you make about that? And then there's a friend that I know that was right that come out of hospital, and that was on Sky News here, and it was really publicized about he was a survivor of the coronavirus, and bless him, he was put onto a ventilator, and thank God he survived, right? Because the stories, or the conspiracy stories that were coming out, was that there were literally this is like a metaphorically speaking genocide that was happening in the hospitals. And
Sure.
then I heard about what happened in the hospitals within New York. You see, I've been following the story in America a lot, and it's almost like I'm living in America, but here based in the UK, because I'm following everything that's happening there, and we follow sort of suit a little later. And when I heard about the financial incentives that they were giving to doctors, I mean, this you can shed light on this, doctor, because I heard that in the hospitals in New York, they were paying something within the region of $32,000 for every corona death, and 16,000 for the diagnosis, irrespective of what they were coming in there for.
That's a fact, and that's a fact. That's in the Relief Act, and so they put it that even if the intention of that was good, when you put a money tag on something, it's going to affect people. And I'm not saying that I'm not even going to say that doctors, nurses, anyone did something wrong. But what I can say is they all work for corporations, and those corporations certainly do push making sure that diagnosis is made, making sure, because there's money tied to it. And so let me rewind a little bit and try to dissect for your listeners. Okay, because this is what happens with everyone. I'm not here. I mean, I know there's people that say this. I'm not here saying that there is no virus. Yeah. I'm saying that the reaction to this virus is absurd.
It's oversight.
Okay. People where last year, 60,000 people died of the flu. Where were all the stories? Where were all the news headlines? Where were all the survivor stories? Do we have influenza survivor stories? And so what happened was a real virus came, manufactured came, it certainly was different, very odd. People died of blood coagulation. That's why ventilators don't work, because they had clotting, which could have simply been addressed. And so that occurred. But let's look at the big picture now. We're 10 months into this. So we're 10 months into a pandemic. Everyone has been passing money, going to the grocery store, pretty much living their lives normally, other than the fact that we're in fear and mass and we have absurd rules. But do the math. I mean, how long does it take for a pandemic to reach everyone? We have, the degrees of separation you have from people that have had them been sick and been exposed. Everyone has passed money. Okay, everyone has. This is the end of it, not the beginning of a second wave. And so the reaction to all of this is what I'm saying is absurd. And it's becoming, talking about a conspiracy. Yeah, it does look like a conspiracy, because now we have fear, lockdowns, new rules based on what? Merely based on positive tests now. Never before in history have we told healthy people they need to be afraid of other healthy people.
It's true.
Okay. And let's tell kids, how about this? Let's tell kids, these healthy, beautiful kids that, they're probably not going to get that sick from it, but they're carriers. They're going to kill their grandparents. This is what we're telling our kids. And so, yes, is that wrong? There's something wrong with that. And that's when people need to back up and say, oh my gosh, because guess what? If you think this is going to go away, if we don't do something, do you think the spring's going to come and this is magically going to go away? We have coronaviruses every year. It's part of the common cold syndrome. It's a very, very common virus. This one might be different, but the tests pick up any coronavirus. It picks up any influenza. The CDC even says it picks up bacterial DNA. So if you think that this is going to go away in the spring and you just want to stick it out in your house, guess what? The spring's going to come. They're going to have even more testing, and there's going to be even more lockdowns.
Yeah.
There is no, that's when people are thinking that what you're saying is out there, then I ask them, so what's the end game? What's the end game? When does this stop? Okay. Does it stop? You could say, oh, it stops when people stop getting positive tests for coronavirus. Well, the test picks up, and this is a CDC paper that I posted on my Twitter. They say it. It says the test is made for coronavirus, not COVID-19, but cannot, this is in black and white, cannot distinguish between other coronaviruses, other viruses, influenza, or possibly bacteria. So if you think that at some point we're magically going to have 1 million tests with 0 positives, never going to happen.
Can I ask
never
on the testing? So these PCR testings, and there's a lot of information circulating about the cloning, the gene cloning of the PCR
right.
testing. So it's a lot of people wrote in saying like sent in this information. Sorry, let me just find it. So yeah, the invention of the PCR testing says it's chain reaction, gene cloning, sequences of complex genomes, DNA fingerprinting, and DNA-based diagnostics are just some of the techniques that were either inefficient, crude, or plain impossible before PCR testing. So something about them being able to clone us through our DNA with these new PCR testing. There's all this stuff, going on around circulating on social media about the fear of do not get the PCR testing done because they're going to be able to somehow capture your DNA details. I'm not very au fait with this, but this is one of the questions that I was asked about the testing kits and how dangerous.
Well, I mean, they have your DNA if they test you. I don't know. I don't have any evidence that they're using it, but they have your DNA if you're getting a test. Of course they do. Yeah. What I'm more worried about is the fact that all they're doing with the test is they have identified certain strands of DNA. I mean, it's really simple. It's not, I know this is like, if you don't have a medical or science background, this is difficult, but it's like if you take 100 numbers, okay, take 100 numbers, say all our DNA, every DNA is 100 numbers. All they're doing is saying, well, we think that 6, 7, 8, and 12, 13, 14, these 2 segments correspond with the coronavirus DNA, RNA. And so they're saying, we're going to test for those. And so they put it up your nose, they get cellular debris. And if that cellular debris matches those tests, then they amplify. If it's a little teeny amount, then they will amplify it, and they can amplify it to whatever degree. And what's happening is the tests, people are amplifying it to the point where they can call it a positive. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have this stuff circulating in us already. Right. We have viruses on us right now. You and me have viruses on us right now.
Yeah.
We have bacteria on us right now. Yeah. And so we have that 1 through 100 on us at all times, and they're testing for it. And they're calling it positive not because the test says, oh yes, it's black or white, either positive or negative. No, all it's saying is, oh, Alpa, you do have 6, 7, 8. Let's see. Oh, you just have a little bit. And that might have been another virus, or maybe that was a virus from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Let me amplify that to the point where I can call it positive. That's what the test is. It's not scientific. It was never meant to identify an active infection. And guess what? Just because you have viral DNA on you does not mean that you are infectious or symptomatic or a spreader. That's absurd. And so that's where the scam comes in.
Yeah, everybody was testing positive for coronavirus. If you recall, the Zimbabwe president, he said a goat and a papaya tested for.
Of course.
I mean,
because it's not specific to this coronavirus, this novel. It's not. And I know that's hard for people. And this gets back to a point that I wanted to talk about. When you have a good heart, and this is where people need to wake up. When you have a good heart and you're a good person and your intent in living is good, it's very difficult for you to jump to that other side where you're like, no, that couldn't, that's too evil. Guess I need people to wake, it is that evil. It is that evil. Just because you're a good person, okay? You know, maybe you need to spend some time in the emergency room and see the 2-month-olds that are sexually abused. You know, there's evil in this world. Just because you're not evil doesn't mean that other things don't happen that are very, very evil.
What happens in the hospitals, you're saying?
No, I mean, like, all you have to do, I mean, it happens every day. If you just hung out in the emergency room, you would see evil like that would blow your mind. And that's a normal day. You know, this happens everywhere, every day. And so people want to put their blinders on because they're not seeing it because they don't work in healthcare, or they're not a social worker, and they don't see the abuse that kids go through, or they don't see the murders that the police see. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And so what they're using right now is a tactic. Their plan is so evil that they're hoping that people like you or your followers that are good people are going to just say, oh no, Alpa, you're out there. Nobody could be that evil. Our government's good. Those healthcare, you know, the institutions. Yeah.
That's what's been happening. And we have had our blinkers on, and well-meaning people, like you say, like myself, like yourself. We've all set out in our lives trusting and having faith. And it just breaks my heart when I hear these things. And it is overwhelming. And I do understand how people just prefer to sweep it under the carpet because it is too painful. And I get that, while I have the strength and courage to speak about it. And it's not easy, as you know, coming from the medical fraternity, I'm sure your road hasn't been easy because, you know, you're brave, because usually they just get shut down. People get shut down even if they want to speak. So we're in an environment now where, you know, there's just everyone's speaking through the social media channels, but still it's important that we do now.
It's hard because people don't want to believe they live in an evil world. And so part of my awakening was, and this is how this stuff parallels. Part of my awakening was, I mean, just Google how many kids go missing a year.
Yeah.
You live in a world, if you live in the United States, you live in a country where 600,000 kids go missing a year. If you live in UK or Europe, we're talking millions of kids a year. Okay. So, and these are kids that are trafficked and abused and tortured. And so do we live in a world like that? Yes, we do. Your household might not be like that. Mine might be like that. Our little neighborhood, maybe it is safe, but that's the hard part. And that's what's awakening to the truth is not fun. You know, it's not like, oh, well, I just woke up to this wonderful world and, oh, we can make a difference now. No. I'm sorry to say that the truth is pretty horrid. But on the other side of that, with the information and the knowledge that we're talking about, there's still hope that we can change it.
We can, and we need to speak up. But the indoctrination of this system has been designed so well that when you're actually presenting the truth to people at grassroots, the disparity and the sort of cognitive dissonance that is happening is
yes.
So they are so conditioned, and this sort of predictive programming, that's what I call, and excuse my profanity here, flicker fuckery that happens from everything they consume, from what they watch within media and entertainment, what, you know, is the consumption of everything that they think they're actually walking on this great trajectory of inner knowing and knowing the correct answers, that actually all these things that you're saying that happen right in front of us, but we don't know. Well, when I say right in front of us, at our doorstep, the cognitive
Yes.
they're sort of, no, that can't happen, because the program, the system has numbed us down, desensitized us. So well-meaning folks, I stand up for them as well to one degree, to a certain degree. And now I've got to a point where I've kind of like losing my patience a bit, because we're privy to some information. We're told mainstream media is absolute load of rubbish and crap. And I have the most intellectual of folks that are shocking me right now, from, you know, the academic fraternities, where they're like, oh, this is just nonsense. Just shush, you know, you're being disrespectful, Alpa. People are
okay, so here's a question to them, because I'm trying to now ask them the questions. I'm tired of talking about it. If you believe the mainstream media and you think your government is good, then I need you to answer me this question. Text me, DM me. If 600,000 children and up to 1 million women are being trafficked, murdered, raped, sold on the market every year, where are the news headlines? That's 20 to 30 a day. So your wonderful media seems to not talk about it. Why? Okay, why? And this is happening globally. And so that's the parallel here. So if you can't believe that your health, the health professionals, the epidemiologists, the people that get on the TV and are telling you all these rules to follow, if you don't believe that they're bad, okay, fine. You don't believe the media is slanted, then I need to know why aren't they reporting about all this? How do you, you know, that would be under any normal circumstances, headline news every day. Instead, our headline news is about idiocy and celebrities, or the election, or whatever else they want to talk about, or fear, or how about this? They want to talk about 60 people dying a day, or however many people are dying in the UK of this labeled disease, which is one of many diseases. Why aren't they talking about all of the other deaths? Why aren't they talking about the fact that how much, I think it was like close to 1 million people or 1.2 million people die of smoking a year, or secondhand smoke? I mean, that's okay. Alcoholism, alcohol, drug abuse, homelessness. Death happens all over, and they're not covering it. They choose to cover this one thing. And that's when you have to start thinking in your mind, wow, you're right. They're force feeding us this fear about a virus that even at the worst is, say, 200,000 deaths here in the United States, even though that's been proven to be incorrect. There's millions of deaths that happen every year from preventable causes, and the media is silent. And this is the same in Europe.
But it's everywhere.
So I ask people to please explain that to me, you know?
I'd like to ask you a question from like your medical background, and when you were studying to be a medical practitioner, the GP, as we call it here in the UK. If you cast your mind back to how you studied, if you could just tell my viewers a little bit about that, because it's now when you sort of are awakened and you look back at to how you were taught, I think that's really important to understand for people, because the system, I keep saying follow the money. And I've gone really deep into understanding that the medical and academic establishments are funded by the Rockefeller foundations, and we go so deep into the conspiracy theories. But right,
I mean, it's true.
And the LSEs and the Oxfords of this world are all funded by the mafias, right? And so the people that sort of well-meaning people that love wearing these titles with pride. I mean, in the Indian community, my daughter, she's a doctor. She's we wear it with so much pride. And you know what? You work hard. You work so hard for what you do. You study. You have endless amounts of hours of study, and the stuff that you go through. You deserve that title. However, are you taught correctly?
No, you're not. And you're right. You know, ask, I mean, does big pharma give money to medical schools? Yes. Does big pharma give money? Do they fund all of the studies, the safety studies for all of their medications? They do their own safety studies, or they hire companies to do safety studies. It's all money based. And so the way that we're taught, and I can tell you this, we are taught to identify the disease. And I actually go through this in my book too, in detail about how did I get to the place where I was so asleep? Oh my gosh. And I go through medical school and the craziness of dissecting bodies and the dehumanization and the like satanic vibes of what we went through. It's really quite, I mean, it's brainwashing at the best. Okay. But we identify a disease, and then we look really hard at that disease and dissect it. And then we're presented with the pharma solution, period. That's medical school in a nutshell. Disease, look at it under a microscope, and then what is the pharma solution? And that includes injections. I don't like to say the word because I don't want you to get, if you say the V word, you know, you get like banned. But nowhere in my medical training did we ever talk about what are the side effects of the medications, what are the interactions, what are the implications of multiple injections over your lifetime, what are the implications of having an injection and being on a medicine, having 3 medicines and having an injection, having 10 medicines. Oh my gosh, you know, people come in, if you're on 8 different medications, is it possible that they're interacting with each other and causing you harm? That stuff is not explained. It's impossible, because it's impossible to know. There's so many different combinations. And so that's what we are pounded. Disease, no prevention. We wait for your disease, we identify it, and we immediately tie a money-based pharma solution to it. That is medical school. That is training. I went through I went through 6 years, residency for 3 years, another 3 years in lung. I did a lung pulmonary fellowship.
Wow.
And that's all it is. The magic bullet. It's all pharma.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we're not taught about nutrition, barely taught about nutrition.
And the immune system.
We're also taught that alternative, like all the stuff that you speak about, or that you have knowledge more than me, we're taught that stuff is a little bit dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's woohoo. And I was very blessed. We spoke on the phone the other day where my kind of awakening started with my health 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was in between jobs, and a friend had asked me if I could help out at their spa. And it was a colonic irrigation spa. And it was there that I'd worked with a lot of naturopaths, where I was like, what the hell is this? You know, he was me drinking 3 cups of coffee in the morning, eating those sort of horrendous foods that I was eating, and not realizing the connection between what I was eating and all this sort of, like, I had psoriasis as well, and aches and pains, etc. I had a correlation with all of that. And I opened my eyes to a new world. And what I started to, you know, I've always been a vegetarian my whole life, but dairy and cheese and all of these things, the casein in dairy has so many addictive things in it, you know, which keeps you hooked. And, you know, alkalizing the body was just never spoken about. Now our gut is our second brain. And, you know, the gut health is so important. And I was just fed like antibiotics after antibiotics growing up. So it's to keep you ill and to keep you sick. There's never any kind of you know, real thorough explanation. So it was here that I realized about all these other alkalizing things, and the chlorophylls and the chlorellas and the spirulinas. And oh my gosh, over a period of time, I about 60-70% cured my psoriasis myself. And then applying the stress, you know, the meditation, because if you're still stressed out as well, that really affects your health.
So let me back up and explain to people. So when you say stuff like, because I know the naysayers, oh, you say stuff like your gut is your second brain. People, she's not talking spiritually. She's talking fact. Your gut, okay, your intestines have serotonin receptors in them. The same serotonin receptors as in your brain. That's a medical fact, what she just said. Okay, it's not crazy. Yeah. That's a medical fact. So your gut and your gut health is tied to your mental health. And the same serotonin neurotransmitters that are in your brain are released and stimulated in your gut. So that, I just want to put that out there, that you're telling truth, okay? The other thing is alkalinization. We know medically that acidic environments cause infection, increased cancer, increased inflammatory disorders. That's a medical scientific fact. I'm here to tell you, I'm still learning about that. I never even learned about that. The stuff I'm learning is amazing, but it's true. And this is not taught. So when you eat foods that are harmful and create an acidic environment in your body, you're just opening your body up to all sorts of infections and illnesses. When you wear a mask, let me explain this slowly and simply. When you wear a mask, you rebreathe CO2. Okay, you breathe in oxygen, you breathe out CO2. That's the byproduct of living. When you rebreathe CO2, your blood immediately gets slightly acidic. That's the chemical equation. When you hold your breath, your CO2 climbs in your blood. And as it climbs, your pH goes down. Okay, so that's a problem when we're asking people to do this for 40, 60, 80 hours a week. You're creating, by breathing in a bag, an acidic environment in your body, and that will create increased illness. So that's the stuff that needs to be told to the public, so you can make a choice. So you can make an informed choice, right?
But it all goes down to the marketing and the flickering of what they watch on TV. And it's like milk. When we were young, all we saw was milk advertisements. You know how milk is good for you. It's awful what they put in the milk, the hormones that we're ingesting from dairy products, and we don't even realize it. What we have in India is what's called ahimsa milk. The cow is actually not ingested with any kind of hormones, or it's just pure milk. I'm not saying everywhere in India, but there's vegans. I learned this recently, that you can actually drink cow's milk, which is pure cow's milk with none of these etc. in it.
Grass fed. The cows are grass fed. There's not hormones. There's no pesticides in the grass. All that stuff, which I completely agree.
Yeah. And then when it's conscious living, isn't it? Where we are consciously making decisions about what we're putting into our bodies and consuming. And we're not just talking about the food consumption. When we go for a shower, our pores open. So then the products that we use will also be ingested into our bodies. So we're hit everywhere. The aluminium that they put in the deodorants, they're all the pores getting into our body, into our system, and desensitizing through the fluoride of our pineal glands. Right. We have this disparity where people have just become so left brain, facts, figures, stats, and we've moved away from the consciousness spiritually, because we're desensitizing our pineal gland, and that's a story for another day. We'll have another conversation about that. But
and this is, so let me then back you up scientifically about what you're saying. Okay, so people can, So fluoride has now been proven. Okay, if you need your science, it is proven to be neurotoxic. Fluoride is neurotoxic, people. It lowers IQ points. There's been a huge randomized controlled study on a population that showed decrease in IQ points in children that use fluoride toothpaste and have fluoride in the water. Okay, so that's a fact. All right. You can go to RFK's Children's Defense Fund. Anyway, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is spearheading that. Okay, so that's a fact. When you talk about deodorants, oh, what is she talking about deodorants? Okay, I can tell you. So in the medical field, we have medications now. There's 4 different ways maybe of giving a medication. You drink it, inject it, you can inhale it, or you can put a patch on the skin. That's not, witchcraft. We use that in medicine. We have patches where we give people medication, okay? Your skin absorbs medication. Now, if you really want to inject a lot of toxins and poisons, put it under your arm. Why? Because it's a vascular bed. That's why sometimes you take your kid's temperature under your arm. The reason you can take it under your arm is because it's a vascular bed. Okay. It is a great place to ingest a medication or ingest a chemical. And so you just hit 2 of my top 3 things, stop fluoride, stop putting toxic chemicals in your armpits all day. And the other one for me is read your ingredients in the food.
Yeah, that's the you were saying about the sugar the sweeteners that you take. I mean, these are the biggest red flags for you when you're in the ingredients, the carcinogens, aspartame, all these sweeteners. And people are duped into believing the diet is great because it's like if they're having some kind of health issue, so less sugar, because sugar's not good for you. Actually, sugar's not that bad for you. As if like the
better than artificial, for sure.
That's what I mean. In moderation, just like we use a lot of jaggery in our food as a natural sweetener. And and that has a lot of iron in it, and it's really good for you, but it gives a nice taste to the food, and it sweetens it nicely, like with healthily, and jaggery is a lot put in a lot of our Gujarati food. That's my background, and so it's natural sweetness. So there's this misconception about sugar, and this is where aspartame based sweeteners were coming out. Even stevia. Have you heard of stevia? Yeah, but how is it processed? I mean, if we look
another scam.
Soya, decaffeinated coffee, it's the chemicals that they strip the coffee bean with is the same as acetone that we use to remove our nail polish. We don't realize.
I mean, yes. And just stevia alone, when you look at most of the packets that say stevia, if you look at the ingredients, it's like 10% stevia and 90% aspartame. Okay, so no, you're right. And this is what I need people to wake up to. The FDA approved it. Okay, stop trusting them. The FDA approved a cancerous sweetener. It's fact. They approved it. The FDA, so in my book, I talk about this, but this was a big waking up. Those chips, Takis? It's like it's made in Mexico.
Okay.
Kids literally get addicted to them. They're very good and they're hot. And so my son was eating, a bag a day at one point. And so I looked at the last ingredient, and maybe this will wake people up. I looked at the last ingredient, it said something like I think it was DHT. And then it said in quotes, an antioxidant. Oh, that's good, right? That's a good thing. No. I Googled it. All it takes is a Google search. This stuff is an antioxidant for paint thinners. It's used to preserve paint and tarnish and varnishes. And this is in a food as a preservative. It's approved by the same institutions that are telling you to wear a mask. Okay? So you need to look at this stuff, research it. And the flip side is, then I went even further. I said, well, okay, let me give them the benefit of the doubt. Is there a natural way you can preserve fruit? Yes, like rosemary extract. I went to the store and I tried to find other chips with it. They used rosemary extract as a preservative. There's alternatives, but guess what? The alternatives don't make as much money for the big pharma chemical complex.
Yeah, and look at all the organic foods that we eat. This that triple the price of your
Right.
ordinary fruit and vegetables. I pay 4 times the price, and I still do it. I don't care, but it's not easily accessible for everyone to be healthy, because
Right.
even the healthy foods, yeah, with all the pesticides and everything that they have on them, the vegetables and the
Right.
fruit, you know, it's so expensive to actually be healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you go to
They've made it impossible for poor people to be healthy.
yeah.
Now the elite can be healthy. All right. Now you see where the plan is. The elite can eat healthy. It's
Oh, it's
very, very expensive.
just this
It's
system.
just exactly. And that's where you have to start thinking, wow, this is I don't know if it's a conspiracy, but it's looking real bad for the poor people. I mean, it's impossible to eat well.
Yeah,
And it's impossible to avoid, these pesticides, these chemicals. But this is overwhelming for some people. So what I always just boil it down, and you don't have to do anything 100%. I implore you, just take 1 or 2 things a week out of your cupboard and just look at the ingredients. And when you see something that you can't pronounce or that looks like it should be in paint thinner, just Google it. It'll show you if it's toxic. It'll show you if pregnant people should eat it. It'll show you the Taki thing, the DHT even said you're not supposed to use it in plants. It kills plants. So just do a little bit of research, a little at a time. And then you start to realize, going back to what we first said, you start to realize that maybe I'm not a dysfunctional human. Maybe I'm a beautifully, perfectly made being that is ingesting tons and tons of chemicals, that it's killing me slowly.
yeah,
And so then you start to think, no, don't be a victim.
no,
You can be healthy. You can change your life. You can't sit there. I don't want to hear that you have a horrible life and you feel bad all the time and you're foggy and you're tired and you're ingesting a neurotoxin and fluoride every day. I don't want to hear. I mean, okay, you're choosing to do it. And so that's where I want to empower people, step at a time. Okay, it's the same thing as wearing masks too. Don't tell me that you're tired. CO2 makes you tired. That's the first thing that it does. It makes you sleepy and tired, and it gives you headaches.
yeah.
Okay. So don't wear this mask all day for the next however many years they're going to make us wear it, and then get cancer and then be shocked.
Yeah. And I think actually we've spoken about the chemicals, the ingredients to look out for, and perhaps not today, but in another discussion that we can do next week maybe, is and see what the response is like, to actually help people to realize, to know what toxic chemicals are put in foods and what ingredients to look out for. So the sulfates, parabens and stuff in all the that we use, but like in foods, the preservatives, etc. All the long words that will probably confuse people when you're picking up something from the supermarket and they'll be like, that looks healthy, but really it's got ingredients that you like are big no-no. So that could be something that's helpful for people further down the line. But just in wrapping up around the mask debate as well, if you actually read the box, it says it doesn't protect you from this boogeyman disease. And also I put up a video the other day of how they're actually produced in terrible conditions in India or other developing countries, where they're actually using their feet to stitch things. And so you're wearing this mask that's symbology, that's supposed to protect you, but really it's symbology of subordination. And that's what and submission, and to shut your mouth and don't say anything, because we're the government, and do as we say. And that's what this is being.
But don't worry, because they are made in India and China, and we got a big shipment in at the very beginning of this in our hospital, even though the United States was making them. Don't worry, because they spray it with chemicals to I mean, this is not a joke. They really spray it with chemicals so that they sterilize it. So smell that mask, that paper mask, smell it. What you're smelling, you are inhaling. It's
and they're not great.
So yes, let's talk about the masks for a minute. And then one other thing I want to get to, because I heard about it today, and I think it's a new social programming type thing. Can we pause for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
For a second.
Hold on. Okay, here we go. Yeah, back again.
Okay, so we're talking about masks. A little break. Okay, so viruses are very, very, very small, and they're saying, let me tell you what they're saying. They're saying it protects you because some spit. And this is also our beloved Dr. Fauci explained this. Okay. He explained this in April or May. They asked him, do masks work? And he said, should anyone be wearing a mask? He said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He said it. Dr. Redfield of the CDC was in front of the Senate, said, Dr. Redfield, should anyone that's asymptomatic be wearing a mask? And he said, no. They said it. Okay. So they lied. They're lying about one of the two. And once a liar, you're done. So a virus is incredibly small. And what they're saying is, oh, it might catch your spit. And this is what Dr. Fauci said. It might catch your spit a little bit, but it's not protecting you. It's not giving you the protection that you think it's getting. Those are his exact words. Well, what happens is, if you have an airborne virus, the virus would be traveling potentially in little teeny droplets of humidity. You know, like when you go out and it's cold outside and you blow a big smoke of humidity, of air, that goes straight through a mask. So it does nothing, it does not protect you from that. Goes in, goes out, you breathe it out. You're not protecting other people, and you're not protected either. Okay. So that's just a fact. It's on the box. We have never worn masks before in our history of medicine for anything. And if you think you need to wear a mask because something, say you have tuberculosis or something, I mean, you have a huge thing on. N95 doesn't even. Those are the hospital grade N95 masks. Though it's N95 because it's a 95% chance it's going to protect you. And that's even fully gowned. Okay. So that's one. Two, do they harm? And I think that there's been plenty of evidence out there that they harm. So even if someone shows me a paper that they work a little bit, all right, well, we need to talk about, do they harm? And then weigh the pros and cons. The other thing I wanted to talk about is so people need to just push back with that. I'm just telling you, whether you think it works or not, if you think they're going to go away in the spring, they're not.
Yeah.
So if you want to live the rest of your life and your kids' lives being fearful of the environment, you need to make a decision. Okay.
You raised an interesting point there about Dr. Fauci talking about the masks they're not necessarily effective. But look at the inconsistencies that we've had from the echelons of these establishments. So this is where I come in with my conspiracy hat on. Yeah. You're explaining it from a medical point of view. And I'm like, well, let me just correlate this with the inconsistencies that these governing bodies that are expected to tell us accurate information, proper information, are the actual ones that have been so inconsistent that it's just like, why are people not realizing that? And I had an incident with a friend who absolutely so frightened that I may have given her coronavirus because I went round to see her dropping just some chocolates over, and she was convinced that I'd contaminated the ice cream with the virus. This is the behavior of people. These are well-educated people that are behaving like this, but it's important to sort of highlight this, not by shaming, and that's something that I don't intend to do. It's just like question the establishments that you have so much faith in. Yeah. From the beginning of this, just look at the stats. It's just a bit like the elections. All these media establishments are telling us all incoherent results. One media group is saying this result and another saying this. So these inconsistencies have to be highlighted. So we're trusting these organizations. So it's all connected. You're wearing a mask. Does it work? No. Look at where it comes from. Look at roots. Look at the roots of everything. So you follow the roots with money. You see where they're made, and surely a picture should be formed. Is it?
Or if, I mean, if they work, why are we in a second wave? Everyone's wearing more masks now than before. If they worked, why are we where we are now?
In the mind.
If they, and I don't blame that person for believing that, because at the very beginning of this, because I have a scientific and a very common sense mind, if this is an airborne deadly virus, then it's everywhere. Literally, it would be everywhere. You'd need to be in your house. You need to wash your food when it came in. You need to, okay, if that were the case, we'd all be dead. We're 10 months into it. This is the end. The mortality rate is going down. If we were that susceptible to it, we'd all be dead. And then you can't say, well, maybe the masks work, because the cases are skyrocketing now. All right, what we're seeing now is the end of a real pandemic. The end. What we're seeing now is positive cases. So I don't blame people, the fear factor, yeah, but you do need to think about why they told us in April and May that they didn't work. And now they're saying wear them indoors. They're saying wear them when you go out to eat, and then pull it down in between bites.
Sorry.
Take a bite, put them back.
Sorry.
They're saying wear them when you have sex. You heard that one. Wear them when you're having sex. I think that was a UK one.
Yep. I mean, some of the stupidity.
Wear them up to the door to the restaurant, or don't wear them up to the door. Wear them in going into the restaurant, and then when you sit down, you can take it off.
Oh.
Okay.
Where is the common sense?
Do your normal life, but now in California, after 10 p.m., you can't go outside. Okay,
Yeah,
so 10 p.m. is that's when the virus hits.
Yeah, when it comes out and it peekaboos. Yeah.
Yeah. Have Thanksgiving, but eat outside. Okay, come on, people. How about this? Go to a restaurant. You can't eat indoors with people, but they can form an outdoor They can form an outdoor facility. So you can go to the restaurant and then eat outdoors, and then they can cover the outdoors with plastic. I mean, so people need to start. I mean, they're trolling us.
Yeah.
They are trolling us to see how compliant we will be.
This is the Truman Show. This is absolutely the Truman Show. And I think we've just got, like, here are some of the rules. Like, you can meet people for business and have lunch with them if it's a business lunch, but you can't meet those same people if it's a personal. You can't meet. Yeah. So rule of six. God, now we're just in a lockdown completely. So for me, it's ludicrous. All of these rules are ludicrous. And the thing is, people are complying, people are obeying. And it's like, what do we do? And there's this sort of like, what do we do? It's just a hassle, at school, we have to, it's just too much of an effort. We have to do it. I see both sides. I do. But
I get it.
If we continue this subordination, especially with the bit that we were talking about with the children, a lot of people's views on that as well has been happening for years. I absolutely, literally, my third eye opens when people give me that response. And is that an excuse to let things and allow things happen? But Alpa, you've got to be careful. It's dangerous, all of this. I appreciate all of that, but my moral compass outweighs any of that nonsense and any of those silly sort of excuses. And this is where we are given the opportunity in the history of mankind to step up into our own power and really step up for ourselves. Step up for our sovereignty, our sovereign beings that we are, to come out of the clutches of the cabal, this tyranny that we've been subliminally accepting and not even realizing. So,
and maybe you need to look, maybe you need to go, and it doesn't matter what religion or faith you follow. Maybe you need to remind yourself that this is just the short period. you're setting yourself up for a lot of karma. What you do now, I mean, how many thousands of what we're talking about our souls. We're talking about our spiritual life, and our spiritual life. This is a blink of an eye. Your decisions that you're making right now are going to, you're going to pay for them. And so live your life, create good karma. I mean, we're all going, that's how you need to live your life. So it doesn't matter if you know the truth, you have to speak the truth. You have to do the right thing. You shouldn't have a choice. And I know it's difficult at times and it's uncomfortable. It's not fun, but think about your soul and the rest of your existence in the universe a little bit. I do want to touch on this one thing because it happened this morning and I think it's the new push. I'd be surprised if you guys aren't going to hear this. It's a new catchphrase they're using.
Right.
It's not about you. I heard this on 3 different channels today. It's not about you. Don't go visit your grandparents. Don't have people over for Thanksgiving. It's not about you. Wear a mask. It's not about you. And so what they're doing is, this is a social mind screw.
It's the program.
It's a programming. And what they're saying is, you know, be aware of other people. But what the reality is, they're telling you to do something that harms you and harms your elderly person that you're ignoring and not able to hug for a year now. Okay, so it's a mind screw. It's not about you. They're trying to make all of us out that speak any sort of alternative message as being selfish. Well, you know what? And as I tweeted this today, it is about me. It is about me. My health is that's my domain. My children's health is my domain. It is about me, whether or not I live a normal life or not. So screw you. And what I turned it around is, it's not about me. Oh, it is about me.
Yeah.
What you're telling me, what I'm saying is, it's not about the government. No, back off. It is about me. You're telling me a rule that I'm supposed to comply. And then at the same time, you're saying, it's not about you. Well, no, it is, because you're affecting my life. So it's very much about me.
Yeah.
It's about all of us. Yeah. So embrace that.
Yeah.
Ignore that.
See, we're taught not to be, to think of self. Yeah, because it's selfish. Yeah, because it makes you full of yourself. You know, if you're making you kind of almost narcissistic. But, you know, this is the psychological damage that's been happening to society, to not feel full of yourself, because otherwise you'll end up being narcissistic. And that's another subject, right? But if you're not, and you're running from an empty, if we just metaphorically think about that, you have to take responsibility for your own health, because it is about you. Because if you're not healthy and you carry on your life eating rubbish and consuming crap, then you're going to end up falling sick yourself. So you have to, it is about you.
How about, I mean, I mean, they could have said that to Jesus. They could have said that to Gandhi. They could have said that to whatever leader you want, and say, hey man, it's not about you. No. It is about us, because us individually, me, by doing actions that are good and healthy, helps other people do them.
Yeah.
So do you see that? It's not about you. Take any leader of truth or justice. You could very easily be, because they were going against the message. They were going against the status quo. Hey, Jesus, it's not about you. Relax there, buddy. Follow the rules. Get in the synagogue. It's not about you. And that could be with any faith. So that is absolutely ridiculous. And the celebrities, I'm telling you, they're all going to start saying it. It's not about you.
Yeah. Well, and
they want to get t-shirts. Oh, it's t-shirts.
This is the brainwashing power that the media have, right? 21 days rule, 90 days for it to literally sink in. The brain's a muscle. You train it and you hear something, you're bombarded, day in, day out, you start speaking what I call the government and media language, 6 feet apart, and social distancing, and, be home, stay home, stay safe. Oh my God, if I hear that again, be safe. And it's inadvertently, we don't realize we're speaking the government language, because it's what they're telling us. And the nutbags like myself especially within my Asian community. I mean, I'm just sectioned off as a crazy person because they are so reliant on outside, the external, when we are home to spiritual practices where we should be really confident in our own immune system, where we're the house of home to Ayurveda, alternative medicine. And our grandmas could just tell by looking at our face what was wrong with us.
Yeah.
And like my grandfather would always say, he would make his potions and everything back in the day for my psoariasis when I had it, but he didn't have the confidence to elaborate because he was like, no, the doctors know better. And I can't, so none of us can be faulted, but we are privy to so much information now. Now open your eyes. Like now, open it up and understand what's going on. No, they can't because they've been zapped by the system. Pineal gland is completely calcified and they are so left brain, facts, figures, no proof. We've got, these are the credentials from these establishments and we have to believe them. And that's what happens.
It's another thing. My friend constantly says this, which is just so true. It's hive mentality, like a beehive. And so if you find yourself in a hive mentality, which means you're doing exactly what everyone else is doing, just droning around, you need to be scared. You need to break out of that. And the reality is humans are hive-minded, most of us. And so I will push back on what people are telling you. They are hive-minded. They're hive-minded drones. And so someone that speaks differently shouldn't be frowned upon. Thank God we have people like you and people that are speaking something alternative. Alternative is okay. We're supposed to be creative beings. So
we're sovereign beings of light, and if we have to embrace sovereignty and embrace the powerhouses that we all are, all of us. This truth community is beautiful. We're all coming together, actually inadvertently in a hive mentality, kind of, because we want to sort of like really spread the truth, because it's like, come on, there's so many different categories.
Well, it's inbred. Humans are hive-minded. We just have to be careful which hive we're buzzing with, I guess.
Exactly.
I can tell you the one thing, and it ties on the one thing I wanted to touch on, is people can look down on us or people that are speaking truth or something else. But I'm going to tell you one commonality that we have is a lack of fear.
Yeah.
And guess what? Medical science people that like to go for the data, if you're in fear in your daily life, your immune system is crap. So good luck. Good luck with all the illnesses, because I'm telling you, I haven't been sick once since all this has started. Not once. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
If you're walking around in fear, you're harming yourself. That's when cancer pops up and disease pops up.
Absolutely. And it's fear is the biggest disease. You've just hit that on the head there, And look, just before we go, because I'm aware of the time, I have had a few questions and I thought this was quite a good one. And obviously it's talking about the...
Okay.
Right?
The injections. Yeah.
Everyone, I'm sure you get it. And it says, hey, Alpa, hope you have a good day. From a lovely lady called Monica Patel. And she's saying that she's got a couple of questions for you. And because if I get the chance, is it possible to detox children from if they've already had them? And similarly, is it possible for adults to detox from that they've had in childhood or recently? And I think that's a really good question.
Well, I personally, and this is where, I'm going to go back to you do have to do your own research, because none of this stuff is, quote, proven, because nobody will study it because it doesn't make money. Okay. But I do feel like our diets are low in iodine. I think there's been some amazing studies on iodine and making sure that you have iodine supplements, because you're not going to get it in the food. Okay. No. And that helps bind heavy metals. I think that doing what we spoke about earlier, I'm currently of the mentality of, because my kids had the injections. I think that your body is so miraculous that if you stay the path of health and avoid further toxins, that you eventually, your body heals itself.
The body's got the power to heal itself.
Yeah. And so, but I do believe, like, you know, for the winter, let me give you some hints for the winter, especially in the UK. Vitamin D supplementation. Vitamin D supplementation has been proven to be preventative for viruses, even the one we're talking about, but who cares? All viruses. Vitamin D supplementation, because the sun's not out. And especially if you have, if your skin tone, the darker your skin tone, the more difficult it is to get vitamin D produced in your body, because your skin protects the inside, but then it doesn't produce the vitamin D. So vitamin D supplementation, I think everyone needs to be on healthy vitamins if you can find stuff that doesn't have a lot of additives.
Yeah. Heat treated.
Iodine, research iodine, okay? And then increase beautifully colored vegetables. You know, you don't have to go vegan, but you do need to use food as medicine. And if it's pretty and it's colorful, I mean, sometimes I try to tell my kids this, but just eat it like it's a medicine, you know, even if it doesn't taste great to you, because that color means that it has vitamins and nutrients.
Yeah. And it also affects our kind of energy as well. There's so much the vibrancy of us and our souls, like the color you eat. If you think about it, like all the nasties, the dark in color, and all the unhealthy foods, I mean, they're great. Like, you know, some of the processed, even like the processed vegan burgers that I eat, I love them, but they're not good for you. They're not good for you. You know, so we have to understand
you have to be
that we're putting into our mouth.
You have to be careful of those, because I used to eat them too, and you need to research who actually has spent money on those.
Yes, the plant.
Gates.
Was it the
Gates Foundation?
What are they called? The Beyond Meat.
Yeah.
Is that them? Is that they're Beyond Meat? They're so addictive.
I know, they're good. They're good.
Great. So yeah, no, I heard about that recently. I think, this is not really a relevant question. So yeah, this is what you asked Dr. Q of a dietary plan for Huntington's disease. I don't know if that's going to be.
Oh, wow. That's
another thing.
Beyond, no, I'll be honest, it's beyond my understanding. You know, I'm still learning the alternative side. Yeah. I say you need to find a good naturopath doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the other questions are.
And here's one last thing. Do not be afraid of, I know they're pushing this vaccine, the COVID, the new one coming out right now, here's the deal. We only have two options. First option is, this is one big lesson for humanity to never, ever do this again. Okay. And it's not going to come out. I mean, the data is horrendous. The data is a joke when you boil it down. They're giving you data from 0.2% of the subjects that they've studied. And that's a fact. 40,000 subjects, they're talking about 100, and they're telling you it's 95% effective. It's laughable, okay? And that's with both of them. So I don't believe they're gonna come out. Just hold tight, and this is faith in God or whatever positive thing that you think is going to get you through this. I don't believe they're going to come out. If they do, there's only two choices. The other choice is it's war. And fortunately, we're still armed here, but that's what it'll be. It'll be life or death, because that injection changes your DNA, and that's not crazy talk. That's what an mRNA injection does. It takes RNA and it envelops in your cells, and then your cells, as Gates said, can be a vaccine producing machine. Your body can be a big vaccine producing machine. It integrates into your own DNA, and it's hypothesized that once it integrates into your own DNA, that you can then pass it to your offspring. It becomes part of you. So it's not an option. So people don't even think it's going to be, you're not going to have the choice, yes or no. it's going to be a life or death choice. So it's either not going to happen, and I don't believe it's going to happen.
No, we've been researching so much, and we realize all the sort of codes that Trump is using within the.
But it is going to be if it gets to that point and it gets close, you need to be ready to stand up and say no. This
is what this is about, and I think we'll leave that on a parting note. That is really what all of this is about. Stand up to this tyranny. Yeah, even if it's not so obvious, we need to stand up to this and also question ourselves inside. Say, look, does this sit well with us? It's something, surely something smells off here. And I pay so much respect to everyone that has been affected by this. I've had loved ones that have passed away, or their elders that have been kept in the homes and, you know, rotting away there. They're not being allowed to see them. Surely that makes them stand up and do something about it, which made me fight with what I'm doing and why I'm speaking up. I had no intention of doing any of this. I hate public speaking, but I lost a family member, and it breaks my heart that once you open your eyes wide open, and recommend everyone to go and read that. I'm going to be finishing off reading that as well, and people on my site as well are already, like, you know, giving me good reviews. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, and I'm sure all the my viewers will have loved this in as much as I have.
And thank you. No, I loved it. It was really fun, and it's great to speak truth. I implore your followers, send in questions, and we'll do this again, you know, whenever you want. And maybe we can I'll prepare a little bit. You could send me a bunch of questions, and I'll just, you know, take the top 10 and we can do that.
And I think that would be really good with the ingredients as well, what they need to, like, so that we get the medical perspective, so you know that, look, this is what you need to look for. So we'll prepare something.
I'd like to know what's on their mind. I want to know, anyone that's doubting you or listening to this and saying, oh, no, she doesn't know what they're talking about. I want to know so please write in and I asked, what about what Alpa is saying do you not understand, or do you disbelieve? Because I can explain it from my perspective. Because so far I've heard nothing that I disagree with. So that might be a cool other episode.
Yeah, no, it'll be amazing. And I'll do that very soon. But in the meantime, thank you so much. And until then, take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.